Everyone, welcome to Coding Hands, and thanks for watching our video, and do support us by clicking the subscribe button. Yeah, so in this video I'm going to show you React hooks. So in current version, like it is the latest 18.3.1, in that if you see they have introduced more hooks. First we will see the list of hooks and reference. If we see here, so we have use action state, use callback, context, debug, deferred, effect, UseId, imperative, essential, like so many things we have. So they have introduced these many things. So in this video what I'm going to do, so I'm going to explain you like each hooks, how it is working and what is the use of that, and how we can integrate these hooks in our application by practically by writing the code. Yeah, okay, so let's go into the coding part. So what I did first, I have created the small application using create react nav. This is the syntax I have used. So here I'm using the TypeScript. So this is the syntax to create. So after creating, and so I started the application, and now it is running in the 3000 ports. That's what you are seeing here. And so these are all the files which are created by the create react apps. If you see here, it's a node modules, public folder and source folder, and package.json, and some readme file, and the TypeScript config. So inside node modules, if you see, all the dependencies which is required for these applications are created here. And inside publics we have index.html, where the application is running, and all the related files are here. And if you see here we have the body, and inside body no script and div. So here if you see, there is a id called root. Let's go to the source folder. So by default it will start with the index.tsx. if you see here, so these are all the few things I will explain. And if you see here, they are creating a root with, and where they are appending the files, here in the root. So they are getting the id by get element by id, and they are rendering all the html things into the root. So this id where they are getting from the public folder of index.html here. So basically how it will work, all the files, all the related react files, that web related files will append in this section. Okay, so if you see here also, I'm doing inspect and going to the enter. If you see, all the things are under root. So this is how this will work. And so react dom and index.css, this is a css which we can apply globally for a body, or whatever we want we can write here. It will apply to all the files. And this is the component, and this is the web vitals, which is using to track few things like the cls, fid, fcp, lcp and ddc. This is one library which we can use to monitor the performance of our web application, how it is working and where it is lagging, and how much time it is taking to render the application in the browser. Those things we can check here. And this is for the test cases, and we are using here a react testing library just. Okay, and package.json, here if you see the dependency section, and few other things also we are having, that these are all the very common things. And app.csx, this is a css files for our component things, and test, this is a test cases. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's start with the hooks. Okay, the first hook is use action state, and if you see, there is a symbol next to that, so which means this feature is available only in the latest canary version. So how we can use the canary version, and what is canary version, that we'll see in a separate video. So let's go to the next hook, which is a use callback. So use callback is a kind of hook which help to catch a function, so which used to avoid the unnecessary renders in the child components. There is no change in the props or states. Okay, let's see this by implementing a small function here. So if you see here, I have a hook folder. Inside I created a use callback, and in that I have index.jsx. So this is the output of that. And what I will do, I will create one more function here to make it work. So let's rename this as products. Okay. So I'm just putting that here. Okay, so what I will do here first I will declare one state. I have a button, so on clicking on this button I'm just incrementing the count, right? So I will go to the products page and I will put a console here. Okay, so I'll make this separate. Okay, so if you see the console, see, so for every increment of this value, it is let's print the increment value also. Okay, right? See, for every increment the child is actually re-rendering. Even there is no props we are passing to the products, there is no changes in the state of this product, but still it is getting re-rendered. So to avoid this, what I will do, I will wrap this component to the memo. Right now if you see now it is not re-rendering. Why? Because memo, what it will do, it will re-render the component only if any props changes. So now what I will do, I am declare one function here. I am passing that function to the products. Right, so I'm coming here. See, it is now re-rendering. Even we are not passing any states values, we are just passing the function. By default in JavaScript, what will happen, for every change this handle submit will create it as a new instant, and that's why this child consider this as a change and it is re-rendering. To avoid that only, there is a hook called useCallback. Two arguments, what is callback function and another is the dependency, right? Instead of this normal function, I'm just passing the use callback to function. If you see here, see, now it is not re-rendering. Why? Because it is not creating every time of this state change. So here dependency, right? So if I put count here, what will happen, for every count change it will recreate and it will pass into the product, so that time it will get re-rendered. Sorry, it's not saved. Okay. See, so this is the use of callback. So if we put a dependency here, for whenever the dependency changes, that time only it will recreate the function, otherwise it will cache the function, it will return the cached function only, so that unnecessarily we will avoid this rendering. Yeah, this is the use of use callback. Yeah, let's see the next hook. Okay, so the next hooks, if you see, this is a UseContext. So UseContext is another hook that lets you read and subtract to the context from the component. So basically what it will do, so let's consider we have two components, parent 1 and parent 2. So in parent 1 means in component 1 I have some data, so that I can pass as a provider to the context, and so without passing the data to the child using a props, we can directly access those data with the help of context. Why? Because we already providing that data as a provider to the context, so with the same we can access in the child component. So basically it will avoid the prop drilling, so that I will show you how we can do. So if you see here, I created one more folder, UseContext, and in that, so I have a index.tsx. so here I have count and one increment button. Let's right, so here, so what I will do, I will use a context API. So we have two things, one is create context and another one is use context. So here I'm just creating the context. Let's consider this as count context. I'm just giving as 0. So what I will do, I am wrapping dot provider. Okay, so inside we have to provide, for the provider we have to pass the value, right? So value I'm passing here as count. So in this case, now we created a provider, so whatever components we are mounting inside of this provider will able to access the value of this count, right? Let's consider I have already a product, I'm just importing the products here. So now it has products. I'm going here and use context. So const. So here we have to provide the context. So what context? This is the context we created here. So I'm just importing that. It's not context. What it is showing error? So this is not JSX element. Okay, this is not okay. Okay, now I am printing this count here. So if you see the output, see, so basically we are not passing any data as a props to the products. We just created the context, we are giving the value to the provider. So here we are just using the context, right? So this is the use case of this context. It basically avoid the prop drilling. Yeah, that's it. Let's go to the next hook. Okay, so the next hook is UseDebugValue. So UseDebugValue is a hook that lets you add a label to the custom hook in React DevTools, which means, so if you want to put debugger to any point and you want to see the value in the React DevTools, means you can use this debug value. So I will show you how we can use this in a code level. So if you see here, I have a debug value, one folder, and inside I have an index. So first I will create one custom hook. So here let's consider I'm declaring one 0. Returning the count. Before that, some interval of time. Let's consider for every 2 seconds I'm just updating the count value, right? So here I'm using this const. see the output. So if you see here, it is 0, and why it is not triggering? Use count. Okay, sorry, count plus 1 we have to do. Okay, now 0, 1, 2, 1. What is happening here? Count, use state 0, set count, and we are returning the count, and here we are using the count. What is happening? Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. So see, if you see here, in gap of 2 seconds it is incrementing the count, right? And I'm just going to the here, this is the component, UseDebug component. If you see here, count, instead of count I'm seeing the state variable just getting updated. But instead of that, what I will do, I will use the UseDebugger here. And here I'm putting, for example, I'm refreshing and I'm running. See, so whatever I used to debug with the help of UseDebugValue, that I'm seeing here itself, and also the state is getting updated, right? So this is the use of UseDebugValue, and this, in this way we have to use. So wherever we want, there we can use this debug value. Yeah, that's it. So let's see the next hook. Yeah, the next hook is deferred value. Use deferred value. Use deferred value is a reactive that lets you defer updating a part of the UI. Means it will make the UI to update little late after our typing. For example, let's consider this use case. We have a text box, so I'm typing something. So for that value, I have to fetch some data from the backend, and that I need to display in the front end. In some cases, the API takes some more time, means that our UI will get hang, right? So to avoid that only, we are using the use deferred value. So if you see here, I have a deferred value folder, and inside I have an index. So for example, as I said, I have an input box, and I'm passing that value to the list second item. So I have a list component. If you see here, I'm just rendering the 100 items. To avoid the API call here, I'm saying just I'm marking the loops here. So I'm rendering the 100 child items, and if you see here, I'm just rendering the child items here, right? So I will go here and refreshing, and I'm entering. So it is immediately rendering this. So now here there is no API call, so it is rendering. Let's consider, for example, I have some API call in this. Let's consider. So I'm just making this item to load a little late. How I'm doing means, I'm just delaying this. So for every list item, I'm just delaying by putting this timing, right? So if you go on, if you enter, I'm saving this. See, I typed, after some time only the input is loading. This is because here it is taking some time, but use case, it should not block the input box to type, right? After I typing only it is rendering. So to avoid that, what we can do, we can use the use deferred value. So here instead of passing this query directly to the list, I'm passing the deferred query, means so it will not immediately pass the query to the list, so this will make some delay and then only it will pass the data to the list. So now we can check. See, I'm typing but it is not blocking the UI. I am able to type continuously, but the output, if you see, it is rendering little slow, but it is not blocking the input box. So this is the use case of UseDeferredValue. Yeah, that's it. Let's go to the next hook. Okay, the next hook is UseEffect. So UseEffect is a hook which lets you to synchronize a component with the external system. So this has two arguments. Second is the dependency, and first is the set of functions. Okay, I will show you in the code level. So here, if you see, I have a UseEffect folder and I have index.js. Here, if you see, I have two states. One is count and count plus 2. So the use case here is whenever the counts get updated, by default, then automatically this count plus 2, this also should update it with the value of 2. This is the use case. Let's consider. So output, if you see here, we have a text box, right? So initially the value is 0 by default. So what I am doing, UseEffect. So this is the dependency area. If we not put anything in the dependency area, it will run only one whenever the very first time the components getting rendered into the browser, right? That time it will run. So what I will do, very first time count plus 2 and return statement. So what it will happen, it will do whenever the component gets unmounted from this browser, right? So that time this will execute, means we can unsubscribe unsubscribe the listeners if we already did anything whenever the components gets mounted. So this basically, this will work as a component will unmount. So what here I'm doing, I am just resetting back to the 0. Okay, so at the same time what I will do, I'm using one more hook, and so here I'm removing, so I'm adding the dependency area for the count. So whenever the counts changes, then I have to increment, right? So this is the UI. Let's see. By default, where this page is, this section, so by default it is, let's consider 2. See, now I am pressing 1, 2, 3. So whatever I'm entering here, that is less than here, and with that value we are adding the 2. For example, now 123 plus 2, 125, right? So this is the use of UseEffect. Yeah, let's go to the next hook. Okay, the next hook is UseId. UseId is the React hook which is using for generating the unique IDs automatically. So for example, so we have two HTML elements, we want to append different IDs. What we will do, we will hardcode the IDs with a different ID. Instead of that, so what we can do, we can use this UseId, so it will randomly generate the ID and it will return. So let's see in the code. So for example, here I have UseId folder and index.js. See here, so what I will do, I'm just using the UseId. Const if I go to the output, it is returning, this is the unique ID. For example, I have items component I have, let's consider. So here return div, I'm just saying this is list, and id is equal to the same I'm using here. So basically id should not repeat, right? So in this case, so I am not hardcoding any IDs. What I did, I used the UseId and I'm just appending to the ID value. So let's see now. So this is the list, right? If I go on, if I inspect, if you see here, all the IDs of the list items are different. So in this way we can make all the elements unique. Here ID is not repeating, right? This is the use case of this ID. Instead of generating the unique values automatically, we can use the React's this UseId hook to make it work. That's it. Let's go to the next hook. The next hook is UseImperativeHandle. So this is one of the hook which lets you to customize the handle exposed as a ref. Means, so currently so we cannot pass the reference from child to parent. So to avoid that, we can use this UseImperativeHandle to make, for example, so we have some input attributes in input fields in the child component, and from parent we have to control. Means with the help of UseImperativeHandle we can do that. So let's see that. So if you see here, as I have UseImperativeHandle as a folder and input, I have index.js and my input. Let's see the input later. So in the index, if you see, so I'm just creating the ref and I have a handle click function. So I have an input, I have a button. So what we are doing here, on clicking of these buttons, we are just focusing the input, right? So if you see here, yes, I'm clicking on the edit, so it is getting focused. So this is the straightforward method. Like we have the input and button both in the same components. Let's consider I have one more input field. So I'm moving this input to the child component. If you see here I have that same, right? So now I'm refreshing and checking. See, now it is not getting focused. Even if you see here, I'm just passing the reference as a props here, and in the child component I'm accessing that props and assigning to the input field, but still it is not getting focused. So to avoid that only, there is a hook called UseImperative. So how we can implement, let me, so for the time saving, so already in the input field I have done all the development. I'm just copying this and I'm making over here, and in the input, so I'm doing this. So, okay, so for example here in the index.jsx, same I'm using, so I'm just forwarding the ref as a prop to the child component, and here in the input, if you see, so I'm just using the forward ref as well as UseImperativeHandle. What it is doing here, so it is accepting the placeholder as a prop, right? One is a placeholder prop and another one is, this is for the exposure. Means from here child to parent we are forwarding this reference. That's why we are passing the input ref to the forward ref, and whatever the input props that we are getting into the input prop second for attribute. And here I'm declaring the new reference, which is a HTML input element references. So I'm using the ImperativeHandle hook. So for this, the first parameter is the reference and second is the function. So whatever the custom handles we have to expose here, that we have to pass here. So I'm naming this as focus and scroll into view. These two things, actually these two things are native properties of the HTML element, but we cannot access these two in the parent component. So I'm just using this is ImperativeHandle, and I'm passing these two. So we can name it anything here. Instead of focus, we can do focus input, focus element, anything we can, that we are exposing to the parent, and we are using this, right? For example, I'm just running this. See, now it is getting focused. Why? Because with the help of UseImperativeHandle we are forwarding. Instead of focus, we can name this as focus input. So I'm using focus input, right? So this is the use of UseImperativeHandle. So we can declare more things here, n number of things we can declare here and access all the input, for example to bottom. So we can use any other properties also. So we'll have more things, right? So many things we have. We can use anything in this. So this is the use of this in UseImperativeHandle. Yeah. Let's see the next hook. Okay, so the next hook is, as I said, UseInsertionEffect. So basically, in simple words, what we can call, in the runtime, if we want to append any extra style to the application, with the help of UseInsertionEffect, we can insert. So see, allows inserting elements into the DOM before any layout effects fire. So this UseInsertionEffect will fire before the DOMs gets updated. If for example we are doing any changes, so before the committing phase happening, right, this UseInsertionEffect will fire. So in that time we can append the any CSS. Let's see that in a coding level. For example, here I have UseInsertionEffect and on file. So I'm just refreshing. So here this is. So I want to change the color of this coding hands when I clicking this button. So what I did here, on click I have one state variable. In that I have basically I have a green, and when I click on that I have to make this text as red. But here if you see, I don't have any CSS for this dynamic element, right? So what I am doing here, first what CSS I have to create, that I will declare. Okay, here I'm going to write the CSS. So I want to create this class. So for this, what I'm doing, I'm setting the color. It's equal to, so whatever I have here, right, this color. And if we want like fonts bold, so on clicking on this color I want to update this style to the elements, right? So this we can't apply directly. So for that, what we can do, UseInsertionEffect we can use. So I'm just importing that. As you see, so whatever the effect we want to apply, that we have to write here. And what is the dependency array? So dependency array is this one. So whenever the color is getting changed, I need to append this data, right? So first one style I'm creating, right? And dot inner HTML is equal to whatever I created, this one, right? And document dot, in the top I want to append that in the head, append child of what, this style element, right? So if you see here, I'm clicking on this button, so we are looking for this dependency. Whenever the dependency is changed, this color will apply. So at the same time, whenever this component is getting unmounted from the browser, right, that time I want to remove this. This is not required, right? So same document dot head dot remove child of the same style. Okay, let's see the output, right? See, got it, right? So this is the use of insertion effect. Yeah, that's it. Let's see the next hook. So the next hook is UseLayoutEffect. So which means this is same as UseEffect. There is no major differences, but what layout effect will do, so before repeating or updating the DOM, that UseLayoutEffect will start triggering, but UseEffect will trigger only after the DOM gets updated, means after the painting is done. So there is some minor time differences between layout effect and UseEffect. Yeah, let's see in the code. So if you see here, I already created a layout effect and I have one file inside. So here if you see, first I have a set variable, and here I have a UseEffect and UseLayoutEffect. After 2 seconds I'm just updating the value to something, and here we are rendering that, right? So let's see this as an output. So if you see here, in the output I'm just refreshing. See, so first is calling UseLayoutEffect is calling, and second is UseEffect. You are getting right. So small, there is a small differences, time delay. So this is the difference between that. See here 2113 and effect is calling in 2114. So UseEffect is calling after the DOM gets updated, but UseLayoutEffect is calling before the painting is happening. So parallelly, see that parallelly whenever the mutation is done, then when React started updating the DOM, that time itself that layout effect is triggered and it starts working. So this is the difference between layout effect and effect. Yeah, this mainly used to avoid flickering or any other issues like that. So, yeah, that's it. Let's see the next hook. Okay, so next hook is UseMemo. So UseMemo is more or less like useCallback. So UseMemo is a hook. Actually, let's catch the result of the calculation between re-renders. Means, so for example, so we are doing any expensive calculations that we can put it into the UseMemo, and unless the dependency is changing, so it will return the cached value only. It will not again do the calculation, so that the performance will get increased with the help of this UseMemo. Let's check this with the help of code. Okay, so here if you see, I have a UseMemo folder and index I have. So in that, what I did, so I have one input box and I'm rendering the output, and I have a button, and I have one more output. So in the output, if you see here, we have an input box and display outputs, whatever output we are, and I have a button, and I have the output for this button value. So I declared two state variables, set number and set counter. So number and counter. So here this is the function. So squared function I'm using. Whenever the number is changed, that time only I'm making a call to the square number and multiplying the number with the 2, right? So on pressing this button, I'm just increasing the counter. So whenever the counter value is changing, that time we don't need to run this, right? So I will comment this and make this as a normal function. Let's see, equal, right? So now I have a function, and so for that I'm passing the number, it will return the multiplication of this number. So I have a console here. So if I not use the user, what will happen? Let's see. Okay, now I'm changing the value to 2. See, square will be done, means I'm changing the value to 2. So this function is multiplying the value with the 2 and it returning the output as 4. And now I'm pressing the counter press. See, so here we are not changing the input of here, but still the console is happening. Why? Because on changing the counter, state is getting updated. This counter state is updating, and again this is getting re-rendered. So that's why you are seeing the console here, right? So unnecessarily, even there is no change in the number, again this function is running and it is returning the output. Unnecessarily it is running again here. So to avoid that only, we are going the UseMemo. So UseMemo, actually I will comment out const. The first is the whatever the calculation we want to do, that we have to do here, and the second is the dependency array. So here I just want to call this expensive calculation. This is the calculation what I want, and second is the dependency array. Whenever the number is getting changed, then only this should do the recalculation. Otherwise, it can return the same cast function. So now if we run, making 2. So now yes, this function is executing and changing the counter, but this time it is not returning. Why? Because this dependency listening to the variable of number, not for the counter. Only it will exit when the number is changed, not the counter, right? So this is the use of a UseMemo. Yeah, let's see the next hook. Okay, so the next hooks, if you see, it's use optimistic, and it is available only in the canary version. As I said before, let's see the canary version in the next video. So going next is UseReducer. Okay, so UseReducer is a hook which help you to create a reducer in the component level. Basically, so if we see Redux is actually a global, right? But if we want to create only the store related to the component level, that time we can go with the UseReducer. Let's see this in the code level. Okay, see here I have UseReducer and index.file, and here I have two state variables, age and name. So I have a input box to get the name, and button. In that, on click of that button, I'm just increasing the age, and here we are printing the output. Let's consider right now, so I have only two fields. In future, if we increase them, if we have more fields to get the user details, then that becomes a little complex, right? To avoid that only, we will go with the UseReducer. Let's create UseReducer. So what will happen? So it needs two arguments. First is the reducer, and second is the initial state. So initial state I will consider name is equal to null and age is 0. So reducer we have to create. So for reducer, it will return the first argument as state and second argument as actions, right? So what we will do here, so if action dot type is equal to if I do that, and so here if you see we have two actions. One is incrementing the age, and here the entering the age, right? So let's consider if it is name, changing name. Let's consider what will happen. And second is increment. So instead of if, let's go with the switch. So how many conditions it will come here? No idea. So let's use the switch case. Switch, and what is the input is the action parameter, action dot type, and case word. First is if it is change name. Second case is incrementing age. Increment age, right? By default, if nothing is there, then let's consider we are throwing error, new error. Action type missing. Let's consider like this. Okay, so what we can do here, while changing the name, what I will do, return so whatever the state, sorry, so whatever the name here, right? Let's consider name is equal to state dot name, comma, so action dot name, new name. Let's consider new name, and age same. So no need to change anything, right? Let's consider state. In state, we are just updating the name only. The same for age also. Age is equal to action dot new age. Let's consider. Okay. State. What is giving block is redundant. Right? So first argument is always the state, second is the dispatch. So what I will do, instead of this, let's dispatch one action. So it needs whatever the type is, and comma new, let's consider this is new name, right? What is the type here? Change name. The same for this also. Age plus 1. So to make it more optimized, let's remove this. Whenever this is calling, so let's consider here itself age is equal to state age plus 1, right? So here now these two things is not required. State dot name and state dot age. Let's see. It is working. On increment, what we are doing? Dispatching the action. Okay. Sorry. It should be increment age. Okay. See. So this is the use of UseReducer. So even we can create more cases based on the condition, and we can return the output. Yeah, that's it. Let's see the next hook. Okay, so the next hook is UseRef. So UseRef is a hook that lets you reference a value that's not needed for the rendering. Means like, for example, I have a button. So I'm clicking that button. That time I want to get the clickable event or anything like that. Means then we don't need to state that in a state, and we have to listen for that. With the help of UseRef, we can get the referenced value. See here, referencing the value with the ref and manipulating the DOM with the ref. So we can do the manipulation also with the help of a ref. Let's see in the code level. So here if you see, I have UseRef folder and index.jsx, right? So I created the reference and I have a button here. On clicking on this button, I'm just increasing the current value. For example, ref.current is equal to current plus 1. So then I'm alerting that. So what if you see here, this is the output. I'm clicking, I'm getting an alert with 1 times. Again clicking, I'm 2 times. I'm not maintaining the count in any state variable, right? So if you see here, I'm just updating the current with the help of UseRef. Yeah, this is the use of reference. That's it. Let's see the next hook. Okay, so the next hook is UseState. It's very simple and basic. So UseState is a reactive that lets you add a state variable to the component. For example, this is the let's see in the code level. So I have a UseState and I have an index.js. If you see here, we have a counter function. On clicking and I have a button, and on clicking on the button, I want to increment the value of that count actually. See, so for that, using the state variable. So UseState, I'm passing the default variable 0, and it is returning some things. And first is the what is the current value of that, and second attribute is to update the value, right? So on click, I'm just calling the function. In that, I'm using with the help of second attribute, just I'm increment the count to plus 1. So let's see the output. See, you pressed 0 times. Now 1, 2, 3, 4. On every click, it is incrementing the count with the help of this function. Yeah, this is the use of UseState. Yeah, let's see the next hook. Next hook is, if you see, it's UseSyncExternalStore. So this is a hook which lets you to subscribe to an external store. Basically, what we can tell. So we can create a separate store, and we can subscribe to that store, and we can listen to that. So we can subscribe to multiple places. So not only the single components. That let's see in the code. So if you see here, I have created a folder and I have an index.js. So here I have one to-do store, and let's go to the store. So basically, what I did here, I created one store. In that, I have 3 functions. One is add to do. So whenever clicking on the new buttons, we are just adding a new to do in that, and whatever we added, right, that we are emitting the changes to the subscribers. and again subscribe. This is to add the new listener, right? So whenever we are doing a subscribe, we will get the listener, and in existing listener we are just adding the listener, right? And snapshot, what it will do, it will just return the output, like whatever to-dos we are having, it will return that same. So if you go to the function here, this is the hooks which expects the parameters. First is the subscribes, so wherever we are need that, we have to subscribe here, and second it will return the snapshot of that. So it is returning the, right? So clicking on this button, I'm just calling the add to do in the store, and it will add the new to do to the store, and here with the help of this listener we will get the new added to do's. So that we are looking here. Let's see the output here. See, this is basically 1. So in the store, if you see, already I have 1, right? So that is printing here, and when clicking on this add to do, again it is adding to that, and it is returning the data to this component. So here only we made a subscription. Yeah, that's it. Let's see the next hook. Okay, the next hook is UseTransition. UseTransition is a React hook that lets you to update the state without blocking the UI. Means, like, for example, so we have some input box in that. After entering some data, we have to fetch the API, then we have to show the data in the list. Means then we don't need to block the UI. What we can do, meanwhile, when the API is going and coming, returning the response, so we can show something like a loading or a fetching. So this kind of things we can show to the UI. So with the help of UseTransition, it will return the two things. So first is the is pending, and second means pending whatever the progress of that, and second is the start transition. Whenever we start this transition, and so immediately it will return the is pending to the true, and it will block the UI with some messages like API is fetching, API is loading, like that. So let's see this in the code level. So if you see here, I will create so what I will do, so I will basically what I'm planning to do here, let's create things first. So I have a box, right? What I will do, so here So here, with the help of this value, let's consider I have making the API call. So first I will use UseTransition const. So it will return two things. right? So based on this, if it is printing, let's try 20 loading. Else, so let's consider the data. Const list. Let's consider empty here. So list. Okay, so what I'm doing here, let's do this transition here. So this is the callback function. Let's consider I'm writing a API inside here. Okay, so for example, let I is equal to okay, so here let's consider I'm pushing data of I is equal to, let's consider pushing this value, same value. Okay, so 1000 times, 100 times, let's consider we are printing that. Okay, then in that data, so this should be string array. Okay, basically what I'm doing, I'm changing, updating the name, and I'm doing a API call. Let's consider this as a API call. So I put that API call inside of transition. Until this API call is finishing, it will return as true. Then once it is done, then it will return as false. Okay, let's see the output. See. Okay, let's consider this as 1000. You are seeing, right? Okay, let's consider more this to make it so nice. See, it is not blocking the UI. We are able to enter into that list box, but here instead of rendering the output, it is just showing the loading. So this is the use of UseTransition. To block without blocking the UI, let's show some message to the user. That is the purpose of UseTransition. Yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching this video completely, and I hope that you are clear with all the hooks of this React. Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. Please do subscribe and comment if anything you need from our side. Thank you so much.